We talk today about disruption and Uli Hoeneß. So when I thought about this panel in the last 48 hours, I thought about the areas of our lives that are disrupted. And at the end, since we were born, all our areas in life have been disrupted. So like how you date, how you earn money, and even how you hide your money from the tax authorities. So like Uli Hoeneß said, in a time where you have digital data which can be bought by authorities, it's much harder at the end to hide money somewhere else. And I thought about this in the morning. And so we would talk about how your business is disrupted by digital technology. And we have something like the experts, the chief disruption officers of 3 great companies here. So like Stan Sugarman, who is the chief digital officer of Gruner & Jahr, a company which is in the news currently every 2 weeks about changing their board, sorry to say, closing newspapers and things like that. And he's responsible for the much more interesting part, building new business and things like that. We have Matthias Schmidt-Pfitzner, who's responsible for all the portal business and e-commerce at Deutsche Telekom. You have to explain that later because it's really huge, and we are still not finished with plotting where the areas of your work are. And Peter Rampling is Managing Director Digital of Telefónica. So when I asked on Twitter in the morning, what should I ask, for example, Stan, some of your former colleagues, unfortunately you got fired in the last days, asked me, what is your princess? So if we are on the Dragon Slayers panel, so obviously we have to slay dragons. But what is the princess you want to kind of save from the dragon? What are you focusing on at the moment? Because it's not that clear from an outside perspective.
So I think, one, I would look for the princess and not the prince, but the princess is what we're trying to win over, and I think all of us will probably agree is the end consumer, so the user. And my former colleagues then, if they're looking for something that's changed, I don't think that's changed in any publishing company, that the end consumer is the princess they want to win. What's been disrupted is what this princess now wants. And that has dramatically changed because the princess doesn't want in the mass that they've had it in the past. She doesn't want to pay for lots of newspapers and magazines, does not want to have a lot of subscriptions for content, for television, for other music and other content products. So that's changed, and that's definitely a disruptive force to win over the princess, who probably wants everything for free.
Did you find the perfect structure? It's really amazing. If you meet people from Gruner & Jahr, they always start, if you ask them, how are you? And they always start to draw their actual organizational chart. And it changes every 2 weeks. So do you think that now, at the end, you found the perfect structure to be innovative for the next years?
I don't think there's a perfect structure. I didn't get much of the opening keynote, but there's one thing that I think is important is structures are anchors, or at least they were, to help organizations give them orientation. And I think that's still important to give people orientation, but I think that most people working in big companies had to get used to the fact that they're going to be in ever-changing environments, and they better get used to ever-changing organizational structures. If you go visit Facebook and Google, well, I don't even think they have an organizational structure written down, except like Serge and the crew at the top. It's basically always in constant flow, and I think traditional companies will have to deal with that, and that's basically why we changed our organization to go, the board is not anymore in silos, there's interdiscipline tasks that they all work together with. In fact, that's my role, is to basically be one of the chief transforming people in the business and get people out of their comfort zones and start to address the princess what she wants and make a business out of it.
How's Deutsche Telekom taking care of innovation? Is there so it's so huge, you lose track from an outside perspective. How do you innovate? Is there a kind of, do you have an idea about how to be adaptive to the market?
It's a pretty interesting transformation that Deutsche Telekom does. Because one of the pillars of the strategy of Deutsche Telekom is innovation through partnerships. And when you look at the new partnerships that Telekom has struck or has done, it becomes pretty obvious that it's not always about we do it ourselves, but rather we partner with the companies that do it better than us. So innovation is coming from the inside as well as from the outside, and the proper mixture of it towards the end customer is what makes us successful.
May I ask again, how do you respond to the market? How do you organize yourself to be innovative?
We organize ourselves in a way that we have a pretty strong organization that only takes care of end consumer products. Yeah? We have one organization. I mean, yes, you were right. Deutsche Telekom is a massive beast.
Thanks.
Talking of dragons.
Thank you. Thanks.
We talk about 250,000 employees, but anyway, the biggest amongst those is the Telekom Germany GmbH, which is providing the services in this country. And most of you might know as Deutsche Telekom, but it's only a portion of it. And then there's another unit called Products and Innovation, and our Chief Product Innovation Officer is going to have the keynote tomorrow here. So I asked you to join. And he's leading all the different efforts in different technology areas to develop new products, either by doing this ourselves, again, or by partnering.
When you've been talking in the back, you told me that you read in the news today or yesterday that Deutsche Telekom is throttling their bandwidth. So, what did you say? Say it again, please.
Who doesn't like that?
Sorry. You're not responsible for that.
Oh, thanks.
I have to stress the fact.
It's okay.
You're a fine person. It's totally okay. You're not responsible. You read it in the news. You're too big. You have to know things like that. So if you're in a position like you.
It has been a rumor for quite a long time, and you told
yes,
me
we wrote
it
about
well.
that first.
Exactly, and the official communication came out yesterday. And to all those that shout boo, I can absolutely understand you, because as a consumer myself, I hate to pay for anything. I hate to pay for content.
Can someone Twitter that, by the way?
Pardon?
I'm offline, unfortunately, because someone has to Twitter this. It's interesting.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah, but on the other way, we always expect big bandwidth, high connectivity, performance, quality of service, and someone has to pay for it. And I'm not sure who does it, if not the consumer that actually consumes these services from any kind of company. Sorry. So I think throttling is something, without getting too much into detail here, which I don't have, but throttling is something that is the only way to recoup these massive costs that Deutsche Telekom has to carry in order to provide all these new networks. Yeah, and we know that, or we estimate that the data traffic is going to quadruple within the next 3 years. The number was 1.3 zettabytes of data that is going to be transmitted during 1 year, which is a number with 20 digits, 20 zeros. So who's going to pay for it? The state, government? I don't know. Up to now, it's Deutsche Telekom, and we somehow have to recoup the money.
I would love to have Telefónica comment on that. What are your plans on throttling? So we
well, I'm pleased to say at the moment on O2 DSL we don't throttle, but everything Matthias says also clearly applies to Telefónica, to Deutsche Telekom, and indeed any of the big infrastructure providers. We all invest hundreds of millions every year in terms of infrastructure, and whether we're talking about our fixed networks or our mobile networks, the issue is exactly the same. You're seeing exponential growth in terms of the data traffic, because we're all using stuff and we're using data-intensive applications and more video, and so we can only see that that's going to increase over time. The challenge for us is in terms of what happens in the long term. So the first issue is in terms of how do we monetize it, because we can't just continue to invest without money. Now, the real challenge, though, is that you have more and more people who want to play within the telco's value chain, and more people who want to build relationship with our princesses, which is the end customers. Now, of course, that's great and that's fine. But what it means is then you have more or less opportunity from an operator side to monetize. I mean, the best example that everyone knows is WhatsApp. There's a great example where there's a huge disruption in our industry, where people are effectively changing the relationship with the customer, which is great, but actually it's reducing people's ability to monetize. So we've got to change, and the things that we're doing is we're offering our own over-the-top apps. There's a product called 2Me and 2Go, which you can download, that gives you that kind of functionality. But we can't stand still because we've got the core issue in terms of all this investment. So what we are all looking at, whether it's in the publishing industry or whether it's in the telecoms industry, is saying, right, well, here's how our relationship used to be with our customers. I used to have a mobile phone relationship with this customer, but actually what we need to do is change the industry and change the relationship so we develop our relationship with our princess. And a good example in our industry is how telcos are also moving into financial services world. So M-Wallets, M-Pass, that's out there now. And if you think about the world in the future, you know, there's some fantastic numbers. If you think about a connected world and the different kind of opportunities to have a different relationship in connected devices, there's going to be something like 50 billion connected devices in 2020. That's 7 times more than there are human beings. That opportunity is enormous, and that gives us extra opportunities to monetize.
We touch some of the points later. I come back to the princess and throttling for a second. So if you talk about what's your princess, obviously people like us using lots of bandwidth all day. I'm not sure if I ever reach your limit, but there are people, the heavy users, they are not your princess, are they? So you say to all the massive users, you tell them you are not in the core of our business model.
Well, first of all, we are not the only carrier that is going to throttle. There are other carriers out there that are already throttling, so it's not the complete news. Secondly, it's only valid for contracts from the 2nd of May onwards. And now to the third and most important point, the alternative of recouping 6 billion euros that are going to be invested into infrastructure over the next 3 years is that everybody is going to be increased in price. And I have to tell you from a personal standpoint that I prefer to be priced at my personal usage rather than carrying the costs for everybody. So when you look at the average usage of a customer that we have today, it's 20 gig per month. Yeah, the lowest tier goes up to 75 gig, which you get with your 6 Mbit VDSL connection. So I don't see a big issue about people that are using massively more, that they have to pay a little bit more as well. Yeah, because they are more heavy users of the same network.
Actually, I'm seeing a pattern here to the publishing industry where I come from and stand, because there's a big discussion at the moment to charge for content, and there's really successful models, and unfortunately these very successful models like New York Times or Financial Times or whatever use the same principle. They charge the heavy users, so in metered models. How do you see this? It's not. Is it smart to do that? So full disclosure, we have a discussion to do something in that direction at least. What do you think about
Jochen
this?
said, he told me, yeah, we're thinking at the side to use metered models. And I said to him, go ahead, you will fail miserably. You will fail because, let's look at the Financial Times and the Wall Street Journal. Half of their metered users are institutional banks, telecommunications, PR that actually have to use these publications because they're required. So as much as Die Zeit's a great platform, just like Stern and Spiegel.
Well, it's better, I'm sorry.
Yeah. We can debate that too. That you have a local user, so you have a local princess, and you have no institutional market to sell up to, which makes that business model really tough. But from my principle, I'm a chief disruption officer, but I would love Die Zeit Verlag to go forward, and we will be a slow follower.
So, I didn't disclose that we are doing this. We have a big discussion about this. What are you doing to monetize your great brands like Stern and all this other stuff there? Brigitte, Geo.
Yeah. I think that the one thing is you have to take a step back and go, yes, and we always say, when you bought Die Zeit, and you still buy this newspaper, and you buy a lot of the Stern and Geo and Neon, you buy a device in the analog world and the content, right? So you'd buy a device that you can throw away every day or every week. And so now you don't have a device anymore that you're selling the content, so that content has to be not anymore a commodity. And that's why basically we've said, well, let's look at what we have, and we have an amazing amount of content. Gunnar just in Germany alone has 1,400 editors. So, but what is the content that is going to be really, really tough to find somewhere else? And right now that really is in the area of more special interest content. So we're going to win the princess over by being in areas where the content is really, really long lasting, and it's probably not going to be in the area of news. So I think news is commodity, and it's going to be really hard to monetize in the digital world, whereas stuff about interior design and recipes and popular science and really, really, really exclusive travel information, you'll probably be willing to pay for. Whether that's wrapped in a brand, and now I'm going to get really disruptive, or you offer just the article, and you debundle and you let somebody else rebundle. Then we talk to probably Matthias and see if we can build a business model there. So we are going to, right now, make sure that all of our content is digitalized, and then we're going to sort out our content right now in special interest content and sell that over e-kiosks. So Amazon, Apple, Google, Telekom, whoever's offering an e-kiosk, great. And the more users, the better.
It's really hard to digitize content. How much money did you spend on this Unity project, which is a major...
Unity project had nothing to do with digitalizing content.
No?
It's just a technical infrastructure project, or was.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you... So I didn't get how you
How
will...
you do it? Well, we have... Now we're going to get to... We have a very large digital asset management system, so basically a rights management system, and in this system, a huge database is all the text and pictures and videos that Gunnar has done in the past and will be doing in the future. So as the editors write their content, that content then will go into a database and be categorized that we can then later then repackage that content.
Okay, last media question for the two of you. Do you think the ad model will work in 10 years, or do you think it will be totally replaced by something else? You are both experts in this field, so maybe.
Let me say two things to that. Regarding your question, yes, definitely, but ads need to become more and more relevant. Yeah? They must not be annoying, they must be relevant to the user that is consuming them. And only if they are relevant in content and also relevant in terms of display, how they're integrated into content, then they are going to generate money without annoying the user too much. And that, in my opinion, is one of the reasons why mobile advertising is not really taking off as we all would expect. One additional point to that, I think it was pretty interesting what Stan just said, because we're talking about dragon slayers here, yeah, and dragons out there. And I actually do not want to talk about throttling too much. I just want to mention that what Stan currently does is symptomatic for all the big companies. Yeah, because what you are when you're a big company, A, you are slow. Yeah, you cannot really move to fight any kind of dragon. B, you barely see them because you're so contemplated and you are so saturated in your running business that you don't see them coming. So what's happening here is that each single one of our companies is actually breaking up organizations, breaking up ways how to do things, yeah? Going into smaller organizational units, going into partnering out there, and really moving forward in a completely different way to operate than previously. And that is the most challenging thing for big companies like ours, to really become aware of this fact. Hey, I've got to move. There are dragons out there, and either they kill me or I kill them. So I rather adapt and adjust my way of operations, or I'm going to die. And that is what, speaking for Deutsche Telekom again, that is a pretty long journey. Yeah? Deutsche Telekom came from a telecommunication provider, state-owned, to a service provider that has lots of different partners out there and lots of innovative products. And I think that is the way you need to move forward in order to be able to slaughter dragons.
Maybe the major problem for telcos like you is that investing in infrastructure isn't cool. At the end, you lose always. So you mentioned WhatsApp, for example. You lose always because the more interesting business is on top of what you are doing. And it's fine as long as you're a monopoly, but if that changes, you lose. Is that correct?
I mean, I think the way that Telefónica are approaching it is to acknowledge that, which is we're changing our organisation so that we have people who are very, very focused on running the core businesses. I used to be on that side of the fence, running the core business. I was CMO in Germany. I've now entirely focused on new digital revenue streams to reflect that. Because the reality is, if you're focused on doing what you call the boring infrastructure stuff, clearly it's vital for the company, it's vital for society, it's vital for customers. But actually, your ability to innovate and change is relatively restricted because you have this core product that you've got to keep running, you've got to keep investing in, and you've got to keep driving. So actually getting people focused on new revenue streams or new innovation, and that can be within the organisation that I'm in, which is digital, looking at a whole lot of different areas, or whether it's with partnerships with other companies, or whether it's stimulating places. So like we've set up our innovation stack with our Vira Academy, where we're giving other people the opportunity to innovate, because big companies, we quite often come out with some interesting innovations, but actually what we're really good at is monetizing innovations and stimulating that environment, getting other people to innovate, and then working out how we make money is also an important change in the organizational piece. Because historically, big organizations thought we could do it all. In today's world, we can't. And that's why partnership and stimulating innovation elsewhere and working in that way is really important for our future.
So also in the banking sector, unfortunately, Uli Hegge isn't here from Comdirect. He's disrupting his company today and can't join us. But also the banking sector is disrupted by a service level above, the flow of money. There are dozens and hundreds of apps coming out at the moment, revolutionizing the money services. And you will have something like an Apple for money in a year or 2 years. It's quite interesting to see that. How would you comment on infrastructure isn't cool anymore? I'm confused because, for example, Google is investing in infrastructure, at least in little towns in the US.
That's a funny example because Google provides fiber in small cities in Texas, whereas Deutsche Telekom gets a call from Chancellor Merkel, hey, this little farm there needs VDSL, so could you please take care of that? So
is this news? Does she call to?
No, she doesn't call, but she has people that call. No, seriously, we are still partly state-owned, so we have a certain obligation to provide connectivity to everybody. Yeah, that other carriers are not necessarily obliged to provide connectivity to. And therefore, yes, it's tough to be in infrastructure, and it's even tougher to be in infrastructure if the prices that you can resell the infrastructure for to other carriers, for example, is regulated. Yeah, and the regulator has been installed a long time ago in order to enable privatization of the telecommunication market. Actually, it should have been pulled a long time ago as well. Hasn't, so it's still there, and it's a tough challenge for an infrastructure provider. However, not talking about infrastructure only, it is about, as you said, it's about providing services on top, services that really monetize the customer relationships that you built on the infrastructure.
So what's the hottest area you're investing in at the moment?
Cloud definitely is something. We do secure cloud solutions for SMBs, which is a pretty hot area, and we see it taking up. But we also started the consumer business that is based on cloud, which is our Tolino e-reader ecosystem, yeah? And it makes the cloud tangible for end consumers, because up to now, every company, including Microsoft, was selling, hey, get the cloud. What the heck is the cloud? So you cannot buy it, you cannot feel it, but when you fill it with content, you know exactly what the cloud is, and therefore I think it's pretty cool that we started this initiative with the German booksellers to provide an e-reading ecosystem to the consumer.
I'm getting a lot of kill signs, so we have to stop this now. I'm sorry. So last question, what are you working on when you go back to your desk? What will happen there? What are you working on in the next days?
What we are working on is, and that's probably a huge, for us, it's a huge paradigm change, is as a community organizers content production company, we'll definitely move beyond the boundaries of just written words and pictures and start to partner and start to create a lot more YouTube channels, which is definitely something that a lot of publishers are doing in the States, but they're not doing in Central Europe. So that's a big, huge initiative. Two is change the mentality that mobile first is not just something you write down on paper, but it's from the conception of what you want to deliver to the end consumer. So from product conception. And three, scale up database-driven content businesses, and that we've done really well with Chef Koch in the one area of food, and you'll see us enter a bunch of other areas where we'll build up huge platforms in special communities to address their needs, and do it with databases that offer user content that are free, and then offer more high-quality content that's probably a little bit paid.
Wow. Complex job. So what are you working on tomorrow, this week, when you come back to your office?
Well, apart from operating telecom processes, you mean, I'm going to work on the internationalization of Tolino.
Right.
I'm going to launch 3 new companies, 3 new end consumer propositions from the T-Online portal business that I'm not able to speak about yet, but they will be small little GmbHs that we are launching.
Just mention the names.
I can't, because if I mention the name, then you know what it is.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
But nice try anyway. And last but not least, I'm working on a compelling partnerships idea for my friend Stan here to see how content providers and infrastructure providers and portal providers can work more closely together.
Lots of friends. What are you working on?
Key areas of focus for us at the moment are very much in terms of the machine-to-machine space. We believe that's a great opportunity. Financial services. I mean, if you think about the world, we have people who have been born today who won't own a classic leather wallet. They just won't understand what it is. And the way that the telecoms industry will disrupt the financial service industry is going to be fascinating to see over the next few years. So those are 2 areas, and also we've got a lot of activity going on with VARA. So we've got VARA in Germany, and we're just about to launch our next VARA Academy in Prague, so that will keep me busy too.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you for listening.